Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Ram. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Ram. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivana Dari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivana Dari. Sodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Dhira Vanachari. Yamuna Dhira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabiyari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabiyari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivana Dari. Sodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamispat Paramahansa Prabhupada Asatasa Shishimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki. Ananda Gaura Vaishnava Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Premsika Host Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasti Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shiva Navadam Ki Jai, Shri Maya Parnavadam Ki Jai, Gangamaya Ki Jai, Jamunamaya Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi, all glory some devotees, all glory some devotees, all glory some devotees, all glory, Shishi Guru and Sigaranga. Hare Krishna. So we're going to read this evening from the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Some of you may have heard of this book before. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're going to go right up to the 18th chapter. Actually, Prabhupada mentions that the Bhagavad Gita ends in the 17th chapter. But the 18th chapter is kind of like an addition to the Bhagavad Gita, which is kind of interesting. So I'll just say it myself. Matsyatas harvadurgani matprasada tarishasi atachetvang ahankarang nashroshasi vinangshasi. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. If you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. Purport. It's a very nice purport. So, listen carefully, it's very nice. Prabhupada's purports are like slokas in themselves. Each sentence is like a sloka. So much realization. Prabhupada says, a person in full Krishna consciousness is not unduly anxious about executing the duties of his existence. The foolish cannot understand this great freedom from anxiety. The karmas are always in so much anxiety, bills to be paid, and family problems, and just so much anxiety. Devotees, Vaikuntha. It's like Prabhupada used to say that he would, when he first arrived from India in New York City, he was preaching, and he was saying that actually I'm here in New York, but I'm not here in New York. I'm in Vrindavan. Because he was always thinking of Krishna, no anxiety. He had such a big challenge to spread Krishna consciousness in the West, but he was chanting Hare Krishna, just see what Krishna wants, try his best. So there's no anxiety. For one who acts in Krishna consciousness, Lord Krishna becomes the most intimate friend. It's like we all want to have friends, isn't it? Everybody wants to have friends, not just a few. We want to have a lot of friends, isn't it? Good friends. I mean, it's actually rare for someone to have one or two, or to speak of three really good friends. Now, what is a good friend? What's the definition of a good friend? A friend in need is a friend indeed. If your friend needs something, you help him. That's natural. But trust is a big thing about friendship. Just like imagine there's two friends, teenagers, good friends, very, like in America they say blood brothers, just really close, And one of them becomes very wealthy. Very wealthy. And the other one is just, average person, just getting by. But the person that's kind of just getting by, he steals a lot of money from his close friend that has a good amount of money. So then he finds out, the person whose money was stolen finds out that his friend stole money. Now, immediately what happens? Friendship is lost. The trust is lost. You can't trust him. So trust is very important. And to mend a relationship, just like we all had this wonderful relationship with Krishna. Wonderful relationship with Krishna. But then we got a little sidetracked and we wanted to be Krishna. So now we're trying to mend that relationship. So just like these two people, there's one that stole from his friend, the rich friend. To mend that relationship is very difficult because the trust is lost. So now we're trying to mend. You understand the word mend? Trying to fix this relationship again so that we could have a loving relationship with Krishna. Not easy. Not easy. But it's possible because that relationship is there in the heart. Just has to come out. So that's what this process is about. This chanting of Hare Krishna, this hearing about Krishna, this reawakens our loving relationship with Krishna. And then when we've done that, when we've mended our relationship with Krishna again, we're completely satisfied. This is the goal. He always looks after his friend's comfort, and he gives himself to his friend, who is so devotedly engaged, working 24 hours a day to please the Lord. Therefore, no one should be carried away by the false ego of the bodily conception of life. One should not falsely think himself independent of the laws of material nature or free to act. So these are some of the obstacles. This false ego, that we're thinking that we're this body. That's a major obstacle in our journey back home, thinking that we're the body. And when we think that we're the body, then we want to try to enjoy the body. But Krishna, he's Bhoktaram Yagatapasang Sarvalokam Mahisram Surdang Sarbhutanam Gyatmamam Shantim Richasi. He's the enjoyer. We're the servants. It's difficult to grasp that, because we want to be the enjoyers, and it's natural. Actually, that's one of our natures: eternality, knowledge, and bliss. So that's one of our natures, that we want to be happy. But we have to understand and realize that that's only there when Krishna is there. If we try to enjoy without Krishna in the center, then we're going to be frustrated. And that's what we see throughout the world, so much frustration. People taking alcohol and drugs, and so much divorce, and just so troublesome, so many problems. Because Krishna is not in the center. As soon as you put Krishna in the center, everything becomes beautiful. Everything becomes wonderful. And then they want to be independent of the laws of nature. And I have a brother, I call him a born-again atheist. He's a real fanatical atheist. So he said to me, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to do anything. He's so proud. But there's so many things he has to do. Like he's working to keep a roof over his head. Okay, stop working. Stop going to the bathroom. So many things you have to do. Stop paying taxes. Everybody's paying taxes. Can't get away with it. So there's so many things we have to do, but people want to be independent of the laws of nature. Stop eating. Drinking. Stop drinking. So many things we have to do. But people want to be independent because they're trying to be Krishna. And Krishna, he's Swarat, he's completely independent. We're minutely independent. We have a minute choice, we can do this or that, but if we do the wrong, we choose the wrong thing, then we have to suffer the consequences. But Krishna, he never does the wrong thing, actually. That's God. He always does the right thing. He always knows what to do. And this is one of the symptoms of a devotee. They know what to do and what not to do. Non-devotees don't know what to do, don't know what not to do. So therefore we're trying to be devotees. So Prabhupada continues, he is already under the strict material laws, but as soon as he acts in Krishna consciousness, he is liberated, free from the material perplexities. One should note very carefully that one who is not active in Krishna consciousness is losing himself in the material whirlpool, in the ocean of birth and death. It seems kind of like you get caught in a whirlpool. You get caught in a whirlpool. Like imagine like in the ocean. They have big whirlpool. You get caught in a whirlpool, just pulled down. What can you do? So people are caught in this whirlpool of birth and death, material perplexities. And to get out, because the water is very forceful, you get in a whirlpool. To get out is very difficult. To swim out, just like even in the ocean here, sometimes they have these tides that pull you down. You had that experience? You're just trying to get to the shore. It's like you keep getting the water. It's from the under. It's like pulling you, trying to pull you out again. It's even something like that, or on the beach, or what to speak of a whirlpool. So to get out of this whirlpool of material existence, we need the mercy of Krishna and Krishna's devotees. Otherwise, no hope. One should note very carefully that one who is not active in Krishna consciousness is losing himself in the material whirlpool, in the ocean of birth and death. No conditioned soul actually knows what is to be done and what is not to be done. But a person who acts in Krishna consciousness is free to act because everything is prompted by Krishna from within and confirmed by the spiritual master. Om Jnana Timarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshuram Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Mukam Krotavachalang Pangunlang Hayate Garim Yat Kripata Raham Bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam Vanchakapachubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this class is about how to overcome the obstacles on our path to bhakti. So one of the biggest obstacles is this desire to enjoy sense gratification. It's kind of like we're getting nagged. We get nagged again and again, trying to, here, enjoy this way, enjoy this way. Desires are entering into the mind, and then externally there's so many, getting prompted by so many desires externally. In the Srimad Bhagavatam it's stated, Samsara kupe patitang visayam uksteksnam gustam kala hinatmam konya tratum adhishvara. That the intelligence of the living entity is stolen away by the activities of sense gratification. And in this condition one falls down into the well of repeated birth and death. And within that well one is seized by the deadly serpent of time. And who can save one from such a situation but the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So the intelligence is stolen away by the activities of sense gratification. Yeah. But what is higher than the intelligence? There's gross matter, then there's the senses. Senses are above gross matter. The mind is above the senses. Superior to the mind is the intelligence, and superior to the intelligence is the soul, yes. Atma, the Alma, the soul. So, by hearing about Krishna, we purify the mind and we purify the intelligence, so that we could get closer to Krishna. So it's all about this connecting to Krishna, to purify the mind, to purify the intelligence, to purify our senses as well. In the spiritual world they also have senses, but their senses are purified. They only want to engage their senses in the service of Krishna. Just like a pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada, he engaged his senses in the service of Krishna, not for any material purpose. And the more we also engage our senses just in the service of Krishna, the more we get purified. Iha yasya hirer dashe karmana manasagira nikila sapyasasu jivan mukta suushite. That anybody who engages their mind, body and words in the service of Krishna is liberated even in this lifetime. We don't have to wait to go back home to be liberated. If we engage our mind, body and words in the service of Krishna, Krishna is pleased and he gives himself. Yayatamam papadyante, all of them, as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. So we have to engage our senses in the service of Krishna. Of course, the most important, which is the most important sense for a devotee? The hearing. A devotee sees by hearing. It's described, I think Chanakya Pandit, that the dog, they see with their nose. Therefore you see them always going around smelling. Yeah? Smelling. And the karmas, they see with their eyes. They're always looking at something, just flicking. Therefore the televisions and the movies are there's so much, just got to keep their eyes engaged, just moving the eyes. Devotee sees with the ears. Because we can, he's called Jnana Chakshus. He sees with knowledge. So he hears, he understands. He can see with knowledge from hearing. Also in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains how these desires, they come. Apoyamana machala patishtam samudamapa pavasanti yadva tadvat kama yang pavasanti sarve sasantim apnoti nakama kami. One who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires which enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but which is always steady, alone achieves peace, and not the person who strives to satisfy such desires. So we've all had the experience that desires are coming, material desires are coming, but we let them go. With knowledge, we let them go. But they're spiritual desires. Those we keep. Those we keep. Those desires to serve Krishna, to serve Krishna's devotees. It's like there's one instance where Prabhupada was at a temple, and the temple president said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, here at this temple we have a very strong desire to distribute your books. Prabhupada said, very good. Don't let that desire go. So some desires we want to keep. The desire to chant Hare Krishna, the desire to hear about Krishna, the desire to serve the devotees, to serve Krishna, all these desires, we want to keep those and guard them so we don't lose them. We want to keep those desires. But all these other material desires, let them go. They'll come. Let them go. And how do we let them go? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. We replace those desires with the desire to serve Krishna. And also we should pray to Krishna to be free of these desires. Man proposes, God disposes. And Krishna, he wants us to go home. Much, much, much more than we want to go home. He wants us to go home. But he wants to see that this is what we want. So therefore there's tests. Sometimes Krishna will test us. These obstacles, these obstacles are actually good because they help us to become strong. There's one example I heard recently that there was one gentleman at his home and he saw a cocoon and he saw that the butterfly was trying to get out of the cocoon. And he saw the little hole was made, and then no more progress. It just, the butterfly stopped there. So he thought, maybe I'll help out. So he got a razor blade and he cut through. Didn't harm the butterfly, but cut through the cocoon, and the butterfly was free. But there was a problem. It couldn't fly. By nature's arrangement, the butterfly struggles to get out of the cocoon. And while it's struggling to get out of the cocoon, there's liquids going into its wings so that when it's finally out of the cocoon, it can fly. But the butterfly didn't have that struggle. Didn't go through that struggle, so the liquid didn't go into it, so it never flew. So struggle is good. Anxiety is actually, there's spiritual anxiety. Like there's one instance where a Sankirtan devotee went to Prabhupada and Prabhupada said to Prabhupada, the Sankirtan devotees here, some of them are saying that it's too much anxiety to try to convince people to take a book and give money. And Prabhupada said, no, this is good anxiety, this is spiritual anxiety. Just like Mother Yasoda, she was in anxiety about Krishna. She wants to feed Krishna. And the gopis were in anxiety that Krishna is out in the forest and he's walking and so many pebbles are touching his feet. So they're in anxiety. Even Prabhupada said they're fainting because of so much anxiety due to seeing Krishna in the forest barefoot. So anxiety is good, but this is spiritual anxiety. So another obstacle on our journey is something called envy. I mentioned earlier that we became envious of Krishna. So Narada Muni, one of my favorites in the Srimad Bhagavatam, he says envy can be transcended by giving up material sense gratification. This is how we give up envy, giving up material sense gratification, engaging our senses in the service of Krishna. So this material sense gratification, that's another big obstacle. But by giving that up, we also give up envy. Yeah. So we have to somehow transcend material sense gratification, and you get sense gratification from, just like here at the temple, we get nice prasadam. Yeah. So that's sense gratification. But it's spiritual sense gratification. We get purified. And here in SanDiego, people, they go to discotheques and they dance. Maybe not now, probably lockdown, right? Maybe they don't do it now. But people, they go to ballrooms and they dance. But it's for sense gratification. But we also dance. We dance for Krishna. And we sing. We sing for Krishna. This is also sense gratification. But it's not material. It's spiritual. And we read books. Nice, enlivening books. There's so many books out there, millions of books. And they're reading them for sense gratification. Pornography is probably one of the biggest books they read, right? But we also read books, but it's enlivening. It's inspiring. Yeah. It's like people, they read the news, but the news is not inspiring. Right? It's actually depressing. I remember seeing one little cartoon, and one person's laying in bed, and the doctor asked him, "So, what do you think is the cause of your illness?" And he replied, "Watching the news." It's depressing. Yeah. If you get too much depressed, it can affect you. Yeah. It can affect your health if you hear too much bad news. So this is all about hearing the good news about Krishna. Yeah. Not only is it good news, it's purifying news. It's the greatest news. Yeah. So there was the one in the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna, he asked an interesting question to Krishna. He asked, how does someone who is transcendental, how does he walk? How does he talk? How does he sit? Generally you don't ask a question like that. It doesn't sound like a very spiritual question. Of course, talking, how you talk, that's an important thing. But his response was, Prajahati yadakamang sarvam partham manogatam. One who gives up all material desires, which comes from mental concoction, and when his mind thus satisfied finds satisfaction in the self alone, is understood to be in transcendental consciousness. So these material desires are actually a mental concoction. Interesting, it's a mental concoction. Yeah. And there's so many ways that people are concocting, material enjoyment. They come up with so many ways to try to enjoy this world. But what a waste. It's a waste of time, waste of energy. Because we're spirit, there's no amount of matter that can give satisfaction to spirit. Just like you can't put oil and water together. They don't mix. So the soul and matter, they don't mix. Yeah. So it doesn't matter how much money you get, or how many buildings you get, or how many girlfriends you get, or boyfriends you get. It's not going to bring satisfaction to the soul. Like Prabhupada gives the example, if you put a fish in the water, then the fish is very happy swimming around, right? Just natural. But if you take the fish out of the water and you give it a big mansion, you give it a nice pool, of course he'd be happy in the pool. But you give it, so many material things, you give him a computer, you give him a car, that's not going to be satisfaction. Material things won't bring satisfaction to the soul. But we're trying. Everybody's trying so hard to enjoy this material world. But they don't know that this is also, it's all temporary. They're building up some people are building up their empire, building up their facilities. But they have to give it up. Just like sometimes you'll see the children, they're on the beach, and they build a sandcastle. Nice little sandcastle. I saw one actually a few weeks ago, really well done. And they left it there, I was impressed. So the child builds a sandcastle, but then after a few hours, the father calls him, okay, we have to go now. And the child doesn't want to go. No, but Dad, I'm building this sandcastle here. Sorry, we got to go. You can't stay here. And finally the kid says, all right, let's go. So people are building their facilities here, but they have to go. They don't want to go. It's like Prabhupada used to say how this one man, a very wealthy man, he asked the doctor, can you just give me 4 more years? Just give me 4 more years, and then I'll have my goals achieved. And Prabhupada said, the doctor can't even give 1 second more than you're allotted. He's asking for 4 years, but doctor can't prolong your life. Another nice example Prabhupada gives us, sometimes you see dogs, people are walking their dogs, and quite often you see the dog stops and he's smelling something, happens because they see with their nose. So the master is pulling the dog, and the dog is, no, I want to smell this, and the master's pulling, and finally the master just pulls him, come on. So similarly, we don't want to leave this world. We want to stay in the body. People don't want to die. They don't want to leave. They want to live. But death comes, and you got to go. Come on, you got to go, and we get pulled. We get pulled on to our next destiny, next life. Actually, the goal is to not again accept a material body, but go to the spiritual world. But Prabhupada explains that when we become pure devotees of Krishna, then our next life, we go to where Krishna is performing his pastimes, somewhere in some universe. And we learn how to live with pure devotees. We become like apprentices. So we're living in Vrindavan with all the devotees, and we learn how to live. And then the next life, we go back to Krishna. We go back to Goloka Vrindavan. So that's the goal, to go in our next life to where Krishna is performing his pastimes and engage in his pastimes, and then go back home. Then we'll be like a fish put back in water. But as long as we're here, no matter how much we try, we'll be disappointed. That's the nature of this world. A lot of disappointment. There's a lot of hankering, right? A lot of hankering. And there's a lot of lamentation. People are hankering for so many things. Of course now, what are they hankering for more now? That we get over this COVID-19, right? Everybody's hankering, when is this going to end? But we don't know. We don't know. Krishna knows, but we don't know. So we're hankering for that. But then there's so many other things we're hankering for. Just like during the World War II, Prime Minister Churchill sent out a message to everyone in England. Pray to God that we are victorious in this war against Germany. Of course, in Germany also. In Germany also, they're praying, God, please, help us to have victory. So God is perplexed. What to do? Well, they both lost, actually. So, hankering and lamenting. Hankering for Sanskrit, and then we're lamenting. Oh, it wasn't like I thought. It's like it's so common, people get married, and it's so nice. And Krishna explains that in the Bhagavad Gita, that mode of passion, that which is, it appears very nice in the beginning, right? Bitter in the end. That's material, that's the mode of passion. So people are mostly moved by passion. They try to get some immediate enjoyment, but then they lament because the pleasure wears off. Mode of goodness, it's bitter in the beginning, nectar in the end. Interesting, huh? Bitter in the beginning, nectar in the end. Just like here at the temple here, we rise early in the morning. Some rise 3 o'clock, some rise 2 o'clock even. Some rise at 4 o'clock, but no later than 4 o'clock. Now, for a lot of people in this world, that's like, whoa, that's quite early. It'd be very difficult. It would be like poison, to wake up so early. Because a lot of people, they go to sleep at that time, especially our neighbors here. But after one has practiced Krishna consciousness for some time, then it becomes very nice to rise early. Even old Bhakta Benjamin Franklin, he said, early to bed, early to rise makes a person healthy, wealthy, and wise. Yeah. So yeah, it's common. You go to bed when the sun goes down. When the sun goes down, we take rest. Brahma Muhurta is very good. Yeah, that hour and a half before the rising of the sun. It's very auspicious for spiritual activities. It's very good. But for a lot of people, that's very bitter. Or we have these 4 regular principles: no gambling. Of course, for gambling, no gambling, that's not a big deal. Not many people gamble, at least here in California. Some places like Nevada, I guess it'd be to stop gambling. In Nevada, it'd be an austerity. It's actually one of the biggest vices is gambling. Sometimes people gamble away their homes. Even Yudhisthira, he gambled away his family, his wife, his brothers. It's very difficult to give up gambling for some people. Intoxication, that's a big one. A lot of people are taking intoxication. I'll tell you an interesting story that happened not long ago. There one man, he got a Bhagavad Gita, and he read it, and he was so inspired by it that he stopped taking intoxication, stopped smoking and drinking, and he was so happy. And he said, yeah, I feel like I'm growing spiritually. He was so happy. Yeah. So by this process, one is able to give up many bad habits. Gambling, intoxication, meat eating, that's a big one. A lot of people have a hard time giving that up. But you get a higher taste. It's like prasadam. Prasadam is very nice. Yeah. So this is a higher taste. And then illicit sex. Even the animals are doing this. It's kind of overrated. It's overrated. It's pleasure of the animals. The pigs and the cockroaches and the mice. They're all doing it, but there's pleasures that are much higher than this, and that's devotional service. And there's even an instance of devotees that are experiencing this so much that they say that when I chant the holy name of Krishna, I desire to have many millions of ears to hear the holy name and millions of tongues to chant the holy name. And when the name enters into the courtyard of my heart, it stops the activities of my mind. I experience unlimited happiness. So this is real happiness. It stops all the nonsense activities of my mind. I experience unlimited happiness, inner happiness. So this is the pleasure of the soul. And it's possible to achieve this, but we have to give it our endeavor. And therefore there's a verse by Rupa Goswami, Utsahan nishyadaya tat tat karma pavartana. The most important is that we have to be enthusiastic. Enthusiastic to hear the name of Krishna. We have to be enthusiastic to hear. You have books, right? Bhagavad Gita. You have the Srimad Bhagavatam also? Yeah? Yeah, so we should be eager to hear. And if we're eager to hear, then there's an interesting statement that Krishna, that it's in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Shrinvatam svakata Krishna. I think Sukadeva Goswami says this. That Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who was the super soul in the hearts of all living entities, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the devotee who simply relishes his messages, which are virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So just by relishing the message in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna is so pleased that he cleanses our heart, he cleanses our mind of all those contamination. So this is the result of hearing enthusiastically. And everything that we do should be enthusiastically done, but for Krishna. People in the material world, they're very enthusiastic to satisfy their senses. But this just means they're becoming more and more bound to the material world, to birth and death. But if we're enthusiastic to serve Krishna, those shackles, the shackles of material enjoyment are being released. And we're able to go closer and closer to Krishna. It's like Prabhupada said, you take one step towards Krishna, and he takes 10 steps towards you. This is Krishna. He reciprocates more with us than every step we take. Krishna's taken more to us. Now some of us are quite some distance away from Krishna. So we got to keep taking those steps. And Prabhupada gives the example just like a child. A child, when he's first learning how to walk, he'll stumble. And he'll hold on to the father's finger. And the father helps him walk. So we're kind of like babies trying to learn how to walk on this devotional path. So we hold on to the finger of Srila Prabhupada, Guru, and he'll help us walk along this path. And he actually said, with one kick, I can remove all the obstacles on your path if you just accept my guidance. With one kick, I can kick away all the obstacles if you just accept my guidance. So he's given so much guidance in these books. Therefore it's stated, he reasons ill who say that Vaishnavas die while still living in sound. The Vaishnavas die to live, and living spread the holy name around. So Prabhupada lives in his books, and he's preaching to us. And if we hear nicely, then that means that we're going to take Prabhupada's hand, and he's going to help us to walk. And eventually we're going to be able to run right back to the lotus feet of Krishna. So we have to be enthusiastic. Utsahan nishyadaya. We have to be confident And that confidence comes from hearing and association with the devotees. Like we have so many nice devotees here in SanDiego. So we gain confidence. And from hearing, we could hear Prabhupada. And now there's so many. Are you familiar with the Desire Tree website? DesireTree.com. Go on it. There's thousands of lectures from all kinds of devotees all over the world. All the Swamis in the world. Prabhupada, all the Swamis, great teachers. One of my favorite is Vijaya Dasa, Brahmachari in Pune. Incredible, just he's genius. So go to DesireTree.com and you'll find all these wonderful, wonderful lectures by all these amazing devotees. The reason it's called Desire Tree, it's the Kalpavriksha. Desire Tree. So all your desires become fulfilled. Huh? Yeah, wish fulfilling tree, Kalpavriksha tree, yeah. So the devotees, by hearing from devotees, all our desires become fulfilled. They help us to serve Krishna, right? So, utsaha, nishchaya, dharyat, enthusiasm, confidence, and we have to be patient. We have to be very determined, but patient. Yeah. See, that's the mode of goodness. Someone may be very enthusiastic, but if you don't have patience, that's passion. Right? If you're just very enthusiastic but no patience, that's passion. But if you're very enthusiastic and you're patient, that's goodness. That's goodness. So we should be very enthusiastic to serve Krishna with a desire to engage in pure devotional service eventually, but with patience. It's not an easy thing. Yeah. And sometimes it's asked, well, why is it so difficult? Why is it so difficult to attain love for Krishna? Well, Krishna doesn't give it easily for two reasons. One is he simply doesn't give it easily, because if something is given to us easily, then we give it up easily also, right? But if you try to achieve something and you give it all you've got to achieve that, then once you achieve it, you'll never give it up, right? So that's what it means to attain this love for Krishna. We got to give it all we've got, and then He'll give it to us. Yeah. He's very kind. Krishna is the most kind. There's an interesting pastime of a person named Rupa Goswami. He's a very, very pure devotee. In the spiritual world, he's known he's Rupa Manjari. Very pure devotee. And he wrote many books. And when he was here, he was considered to be the most intelligent person. So he was meditating on some wonderful pastimes of Krishna. And he was relishing the pastime. But then he lost it. It just disappeared, and he couldn't remember the pastime. And he was astounded. And he was thinking, well, I must have offended somebody. So he went to his Siksha Guru, which is his brother, Sanatana Goswami. And he explained to him, I was doing this meditation on Krishna's pastimes, and it was wonderful, and I was just relishing. But then Krishna just disappeared. Did I offend somebody, maybe? And Sanatana Goswami was such a great devotee. He was also a great devotee, also, one of the gopis, I forgot which one, in the spiritual world. So he said, well, I'll meditate, and I'll let you know. So he went into deep meditation, and he went into this pastime that Rupa Goswami was thinking about at that time. And then he noticed that a sadhu had come by. And Rupa Goswami, when he was meditating on this pastime, something funny happened, so he started laughing. So this sadhu that walked by thought that he was laughing at the sadhu because he was a little... his body was kind of crippled, and kids would sometimes laugh at him because he was out of posture, like crippled. And he thought Rupa Goswami was laughing at him also, so he became offended. So, I mean, Rupa Goswami, he didn't know anything about this, but this sadhu thought that he had been offensive toward him, so therefore he lost that remembrance of Krishna. So Sanatana Goswami explained that to him, and so Rupa Goswami, he went to this person and he said, "Sadhu, I meant no offense to you. I was meditating on pastimes of Krishna. That was why I laughed. I wasn't laughing at you." And the sadhu was very happy to hear that. And he was surprised also that, how did you know that I was even thinking that? So offenses is something that we have to be very careful about. Offenses to Krishna, offenses to devotees, offenses to the holy name. Therefore we have to be very humble. And therefore there's a verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, spoken by Lord Chaitanya. And he said this verse, actually Krishna Das Kaviraj says, this verse is so important, this verse I'm going to tell you, it's so important that it should be worn around one's neck, strung by the holy name. And that verse is Trinadapi Sunechena, Tororapi Sihistana, Amanina Manidena, Kirtaniya Sadahari. That one should think oneself lower than the straw in the street. Very low. How low is the street? The straw in the street. I mean, that's like as low as you can get. Very low. More tolerant than a tree. Very tolerant. Ready to offer all respects to others without desiring respect for oneself. Now, if one is able to think like that, then one can chant the holy name constantly. So this is very important. Humility is very important for our advancement in spiritual life. And by hearing about Krishna again and again, then we understand how great Krishna is. And how small we are. We're very small. How small are we? The soul, how small is the soul? 1/10,000 the size of a tip of a hair. To explain. So you take a tip of a hair and you cut it 100 times, and then you take one of those and you cut that again, and you can't measure. We're very small. We're so small, I can't even see you. I see your body, you see my body, but you don't see me. No, but you can't even see the soul with a microscope. Right? Even the most powerful microscope can't see the soul. We're so small. But because we have this body, we think we're big. But we're so small. So by hearing again and again, we understand how small we are and how great Krishna is. So maybe I'll stop there. Any question? Thank you for hearing so attentively. Any question? Okay. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.